Have you ever walked into someone's house and immediately thought, how can anyone live like this? Clothes on the couch, dirty dishes in the sink, mail scattered across the table, dust collecting in corners that haven't been touched for weeks. Most people look at a home like that and reach the same conclusion. They're just lazy. But what if that's completely wrong? What if that messy house isn't a sign of laziness at all? What if it's actually a silent psychological warning that the brain is struggling in ways most people never notice? Here's something fascinating. Many people who desperately want a clean home are often the very people who can't bring themselves to clean it. Not because they don't care, but because something invisible is standing between intention and action. Psychologists have spent years studying why intelligent, responsible, caring people sometimes lose control of their living spaces. And what they discovered has almost nothing to do with motivation. It has everything to do with how the brain manages mental energy. Once you understand this, you'll never judge a messy room or the person living inside it the same way again. Let's start with something almost everyone has experienced. And you walk past it, you notice it, but keep going. A few days later, another sweater lands on the same chair. Then a backpack, a shopping bag, a towel. Without realizing it, that chair slowly changes its purpose. It no longer feels like furniture. It becomes a storage space. And here's the strange part. You stop seeing it. Your eyes still look directly at it every day, but your brain quietly edits it out. Psychologists call this habituationist arrest. When your brain sees the same stimulus over and over, without immediate consequences, it begins treating it as background information. Just like you eventually stop hearing the ticking of a clock or the sound of your air conditioner, but while your conscious mind ignores it, another part of your brain doesn't. Every single glance sends a tiny reminder. You still haven't dealt with this. One reminder isn't a problem. Hundreds of reminders become emotional noise. This is where the cycle quietly begins. Because clutter isn't only physical, it becomes mental. Every unfinished task occupies a small amount of attention. One shirt, one unopened package, one pile of papers. Individually, they seem insignificant. Together, they create dozens of tiny decisions waiting to be made. Should I fold this? Where does this belong? Should I throw it away? Maybe later. Psychologists sometimes refer to this as mental load, the invisible effort required to keep track of unfinished responsibilities. And the more unfinished tasks accumulate around you, the heavier that mental load becomes. Ironically, the heavier it becomes, the harder it is to take the very first step. This is why many people don't ignore the mess because they don't care. They ignore it because every object has quietly become another unfinished decision. Eventually, opening the bedroom door doesn't just reveal a messy room. It reminds the brain of everything it hasn't managed to finish. And that's when cleaning stops feeling like a simple chore and starts feeling emotionally overwhelming. Most people think a messy house creates stress. Psychology suggests something even more surprising. Sometimes, stress creates the messy house. So what actually changes? Why can someone clearly see the mess, want to clean it, and still remain completely stuck? The answer isn't a lack of discipline. It's something psychologists call executive function asterisk. Think of executive function as your brain's project manager. It decides what deserves attention, what should happen first, what can wait. You don't spend 10 minutes debating whether to do it. You simply act. But life doesn't always leave this system untouched. Stress, anxiety, depression, burnout, ADHD, grief, even months of poor sleep. All of these can weaken the brain's ability to organize and initiate simple actions. And here's what makes it so confusing. Your awareness stays intact. You still know exactly what needs to be done. You just can't seem to make yourself start. To someone watching, that sounds like an excuse. To the person experiencing it, it's incredibly frustrating. Because they aren't fighting the mess, they're fighting their own brain. But the story doesn't end there. Something even more powerful begins to take over. Shame. At first, the clutter is just clutter. Then someone makes a comment. Your room is always a disaster. Or maybe no one says anything at all. Maybe you become your own harshest critic. Every time you walk past the laundry, you silently tell yourself, "What's wrong with me?" Instead of focusing on cleaning, your brain starts focusing on protecting your self-esteem. Avoid the room, ignore the pile, promise to deal with it tomorrow. Anything except facing another reminder that you feel like you failed. This creates a dangerous loop. The mess creates shame. The shame steals mental energy. Less mental energy means less cleaning, which creates more mess, which creates even more shame. It's no longer a cleaning problem. It's an emotional cycle. And over time, your brain begins making another invisible change. It starts associating certain places with emotional discomfort. Without realizing it, your brain labels those spaces as stressful. And like it avoids any stressful situation, it begins avoiding those rooms too. You scroll on your phone instead. Watch another episode. Take an unnecessary nap. Not because you're lazy, but because avoidance temporarily feels safer than confronting the emotional weight waiting inside that room. This is why people often clean their entire desk instead of the overflowing closet, or answer emails instead of washing dishes. The brain naturally chooses the task that feels emotionally lighter. Moving a pile of clothes takes very little effort. Psychologically, that same pile may represent weeks of guilt, missed intentions, and constant self-criticism. You're not lifting clothes anymore. You're lifting the emotional story attached to them. And that's a much heavier burden than most people realize. The surprising truth is this: the mess you see inside the house is often just the visible symptom. The real struggle is happening inside the mind. And until that hidden struggle is understood, no amount of guilt, criticism, or just clean it advice is likely to solve the problem. Here's the part most advice completely misses. People often say, there probably wouldn't be a problem in the first place. Imagine asking someone with a sprained ankle, why don't you just run? The problem isn't understanding what needs to happen. The problem is having the ability to begin. That's why the solution isn't forcing yourself through one massive cleaning session. Psychology points towards something much smaller. Behavioral scientists call it reducing friction. The easier a task feels to begin, the more likely your brain is to engage with it. Instead of telling yourself, I'm going to clean the entire house today, try saying, I'm only putting one cup in the sink, because every completed action sends your brain a different message. Instead of hearing, I never finish anything, your brain starts hearing, I completed something. That small success creates momentum, and momentum is incredibly powerful. One shirt often becomes two. Two becomes five. Before long, you've done far more than you expected. Not because you forced yourself, but because your brain finally experienced progress instead of pressure. There's another shift that's just as important. You have to change what the mess means. Right now, many people see a cluttered room and immediately think, this proves I'm lazy. I'm failing. But what if the room is saying something entirely different? What if it's not a judgment, but a message? A message that your mental energy has been stretched too thin, that you've been carrying responsibilities no one else can see, that your nervous system has been focused on surviving instead of organizing. Seen this way, the mess becomes less like evidence against you and more like a dashboard warning light in a car. When the fuel light comes on, you don't insult the car. You recognize that something needs attention. Your mind deserves the same kindness. When life becomes emotionally overwhelming, our environment often changes first, not because we stopped caring, but because our limited mental resources had to go somewhere else. That's why cleaning the house without addressing the real source of stress often doesn't last. The room becomes tidy, but a few weeks later, the clutter quietly returns. Not because the person failed, because the cause never changed. Maybe it's constant exhaustion, maybe it's revealing it. And perhaps that's the biggest lesson of all. A messy home doesn't automatically tell you who someone is. It tells you they may be carrying something you can't see. So the next time you notice that pile of clothes or that sink full of dishes, don't ask, why am I so lazy? Ask a different question. What has been taking so much of my mental energy lately? That single question shifts the focus away from blame and toward understanding. Because lasting change rarely begins with judgment. It begins with awareness. Remember, your home is not your identity. Your clutter is not your character. One tiny decision that reminds your brain, I'm moving forward. Because healing doesn't always begin with a perfectly clean house. Sometimes, it begins with realizing that the mess was never the real problem. It was simply your mind asking for help in the only language it knew. And once you learn to listen, you stop fighting your home and start understanding yourself.